Here we go. Hey. Big week ahead. The NFL draft is upon us. A few
Woo!
days to go. Is that a Quincy high school
Yeah.
shirt? Is that
Go Blue
repping the Blue
Devils. Go Blue
Devils?
Devils.
There you go. I like it. Who are
I
they
I
picking?
I have a my stepdaughter's going to be a Blue Devil next year. Moving
Okay.
on
There you
from
go.
the Quincy Junior High Comets to the Quincy High Blue Devils, which
Heck
they've
yeah.
been featured on Sports Center for having one of the top 10 best high school basketball intros. It's
Intros.
it's awesome.
Okay.
Like they're more recently.
I can't believe I never covered a home game. They were too far, but I definitely covered away games of theirs.
This is the first time Quincy had like a football team make it to the Final Four. I think they made Final Four or Final Eight.
Dang.
So they're historically more of a basketball school. Like we've had dudes make the NBA type of stuff. But
do they have a NFL alumni at all?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'd have to get my guy Dob Don O'Brien on. He would know the history. And also I will just say my stepdaughter made the Palm Squad. So great excuse to go to football games for me.
No doubt.
Yeah, I'll be at everything. I'll be at everything.
Friday nights, Mark will not be available from August
to
December.
I'll be convincing my wife to stay for the second half. Like, I know the Palmies are a halftime thing, but we got to stay for the second half. Got a good game here.
Exactly. Well, this is one of the more exciting episodes that we do every year. Really looking forward to the.
You guys can laugh at us at how bad our picks are.
Yeah. We do need to do like I know occasionally we've looked back real quickly, but yeah, we do need to do like a comprehensive recap of our previous picks and see how on the nose we were and how brutally terrible it was. I think if we hit 6 picks in the first round, got to feel pretty good about that. Given class to class, it's a little bit easier. Last year was easier because you knew like 4 quarterbacks were going. 6 ended up going, but this year might be a little bit tougher because there aren't too many straight up blue chip guys in this draft, right? There's like maybe a handful that you're like, oh, these are studs. The rest are, we're not sure. Like, maybe these guys will come in and make an impact on day one. But yeah, there's a lot of consensus about this being a great 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round draft. Like a lot of really, really good starter quality players, but no surefire, Hall of Fame blue chip type guys, except for maybe a few.
We've been doing so much draft prep, especially over the last week, really kicking it up and getting ready for this. And I felt like I had like some strong thoughts. And then a guy who I love and I trust a lot, Daniel Jeremiah. Mm-hmm. He was on Pardon My Take today, their episode that released today. And I was listening to that all day while at work and driving around. And he was talking about how this year is different because this year he says there's about 6 guys who they think are like game-changing people. For instance, on average, draft has like 12 to 14. That they're like, those are surefire first rounders. If they're in the right situation, right scenario, right coaching, those should be guys who are perennial Pro Bowlers who like can change an organization. So you're already at like half. And then he went on to say, but from pick 7 to like 70, you can make an argument for all of those guys to be in the top, in the first and second round.
First rounders.
So it's like you're going to see things like we're going to make a lot of guesses for teams here. Like, hey, this is who I think they should go based off of a need and based off of the people I trust who's best available. But it's really one of those drafts where it's like if your team's picking in that 20th, like you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you may take a guy that and immediately the fan base goes, what the heck? He was a 3rd round grade in Kuiper. But maybe McShay has him as a high 2nd round grade, and maybe a guy like Daniel Jeremiah had him middle of the 1st because that's just the way this draft is.
Yeah, no question.
And it's not a deep wide receiver draft. If it's like normally the star
not really at the skill position players at all, except for running back. Everything else is it's tough to.
You're right. The running backs, but then everyone's like, do you take a running back in the 1st round? But it's like, well, if that's where the strength of the draft is, and last year, you think about it, you had 6 quarterbacks and 6 wide receivers in the 1st round. You might not have 6 total between wide receivers and quarterbacks go in the 1st round this year.
No question. I don't think there will be.
And again, Daniel Jeremiah was saying on Pardon My Take that there's a lot of guys that there's a lot of quality. Like if you get that guy at a wide receiver and you already have your number one wide receiver on your roster, he's a great number two. And there's a ton of great number threes, but you're not picking a lot of teams don't have the luxury to pick a number two guy in the first round, but you're going to have to make picks in the first round. So we'll see what we end up with. I'm excited. You're doing the odd picks so you can get your Steelers. I'm doing the even picks so I can get my Bears. I'm really, really interested to see the Shedeur Sanders is the name I'm interested in, right? Because I have a spot for him on the even numbers somewhere in this first round, but he's got to last to that spot. So I'm very interested to see if he lasts to that spot. And if the odds don't take him first, because I'm not.
It is funny. Like all of these years that we've done it, I'm pretty sure the Bears and Steelers have always had opposite, even or odd.
Probably
because I think we've done it this way the whole time since we started, and that's 5 drafts.
Yeah.
Where you get evens and I get odds, or vice versa, and it works out that our team is picking at that spot. So that's another interesting.
I hate that I'm making the Bears pick because I have like 2 names that I want to fall, and if they don't fall, I'm going to be like trade back.
Yeah, it might be rough. Well, yeah, I've a lot of these teams. I put maybe like 2 options in case one, you snagged one of the guys. But there are some teams where I'm like, I just put 1 player, and so I might have to do some scrambling, depending on what happens here. So, but yeah, very much looking forward to it. Yeah. All right, let's dive in. The pick is in. Here we go. 2025 NFL mock draft. Got to pull up the trusty PFF mock draft simulator here to kind of guide us through as we seek things out. I'm not sure, Mark, how well you're going to be able to see on this, but we're going to give it a go here. Start the draft. I think we're all good. All right. So the Tennessee Titans are on the clock, of course, with pick number 1, and I have
in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
In Green Bay, Wisconsin. Yeah, absolutely. The Tennessee Titans on the clock. And they're not going to go Travis Hunter. I think this is one that we can kind of breeze through pretty quickly. Going to filter out the quarterbacks here. And Cam Ward, the worst kept secret around town, is going to be the pick to the Tennessee Titans. Clear number 1 quarterback. And honestly, Mark, he's a guy that, despite the weakness of the class, I think is still a guy that would go top 5 in any draft. He just has like those tools that are compelling for any team. Is he a true surefire blue chip quarterback like a Caleb Williams or a Trevor Lawrence? He's not that generational level, but I still think he's good enough to where this is kind of a don't sweat it approach for Tennessee. You get the guy and you feel good about it.
It's funny. I saw a couple different things as I'm preparing for this. There was one ESPN analyst who said he had Cam Ward, if they were mixing, I think it was Dan Orlovsky, if they were mixing last year's quarterbacks and this year's quarterbacks, where would Cam Ward go? And he had him number 3 behind Caleb and Jayden Daniels. And then Jeremiah, Daniel Jeremiah says, he was graded to me the same as Bo Nix. Not as polished as a passer, but a little bit more upside athletically and size. So,
but that's how that draft class went anyway, right? Because yes, Bo Nix wasn't the 3rd off the board, but you could lump pretty much all of those guys together. Yeah, Bo, Drake. Drake, I think was better. Like, I agree with that.
I don't say that to sit here and say I think Caleb Williams is going to have a better career than Cam Ward. Cam Ward could absolutely have the best career out of all these guys. He's capable of doing that. But to give you a perspective of where he lists, he kind of falls in recent history. That's where they would have had him at. I agree with you. Now, this is for my first pick with the Browns.
And we'll just preface this real quick. We've done this in the past. No trades. We're doing this straight clean through. Obviously, there will be trades at some point. We have no way of predicting that. So we're going clean as if everybody had the picks that they have today.
To our knowledge, the crazy thing is this is the most times we've done this. There's already been trades in the draft. Like the Bears had already traded with the Panthers and stuff. So
it's been since the 90s, I believe, that it's gone this long with nobody trading into the first round or up in the first round.
It's weird. So that's a good history note for everyone too. The pick is Travis Hunter. It's not who I would take, though. I want it preferenced. Okay. If I was the GM of the Browns, I would take Abdul Carter. I think it's sick. This is my dumb brain. I think it's sick having Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter on the same roster. I've heard from many, many people it's a no-brainer. Travis Hunter's the pick. And I've heard that Kevin Stefanski wants him as a wide receiver first with a package on defense as opposed to a defensive back with a package on offense. It appears they think Travis Hunter is going to be maybe their wide receiver number one and will also play defense for this team. I think that's the way to go because it sounds like Travis Hunter has said he wants to be a wide receiver first.
Yeah, I mean that's where the money's at too.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. If you feel that you can excel at both, you're going to be the number 2 overall pick, then you're going to want to make that money as a wideout for sure. You score touchdowns, do all that stuff. It makes sense. I am interested to hear, like, I always thought, of course, he's a dual threat guy. You'd be silly not to try him out. But what does a package on defense mean when it comes to just sparingly throwing a guy out at corner? It's not like, we're running nickel and there's a guy that, is our designated nickel corner, or in dime package, this guy plays, our dime backer. I doubt that there's a specific position that he would be designated for. It'd be more like, okay, 5 plays a game, we're just going to put you as the outside corner.
I think it's going to be matchup based. If I had to guess, I think it's going to be matchup based. They say, hey, for this wide receiver we're playing this week, Travis, you're going to follow them in certain packages, whether it's only on third downs, whether it's only when they're on the red zone, inside the red zone. You know what I mean? Like it's like,
or like 4 wide receiver sets, 5 wide receiver sets. Like, we're going to have you out there
when they're going no huddle, things like that. You're going to be on the field because we need you to make a play for us. Fourth quarter, you're going to be. So we'll see. It's really awesome, but I think it's cooler for us as fans to know he's going to Cleveland, to know he's going to be 75% wide receiver, 25% corner, as opposed to vice versa.
So that brings us to the New York Giants, number 3 on the clock here. They have a lot of needs, quarterback being one of them. I'm sure they're very upset that this ends up being the draft where they're, top 3 pick, needing a quarterback, and there really just isn't one available. You could go Shedeur Sanders here. I am not. They have a lot of other needs. They could go on either line, to be fair. But if you have a guy that can wreak havoc, and that is one of the few almost surefire blue chip players in Abdul Carter available, I do think you got to go with it. Is it their biggest need? No, but it's still a need that they have. And he's the best player potentially in this draft, right there available for you at 3. Now, if I'm New York, I'm trading down from here. I'm trying to acquire a bunch of picks because, yes, having Abdul Carter would be great, and then you're solidified. But with Brian Burns and Lawrence and some of these other guys, they have really good players along the D line, but I still think you got to take him here if you're going to stay at 3. So that's the move.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I would try to trade down if I was New York, but if not, I would make a strength of my team even stronger. Listen, New York is not a good football team, but you can rely on the fact that, hey, we're going to get after your passer, and you're going to have a nightmarish day when you come to New York. And listen,
with Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels having to contend with, and Dak Prescott's no slouch. Like, you got to be able to get after him.
It says needs QB. They do have Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. It's not like they have to draft a quarterback.
Yeah, they don't need him this year.
They don't need to draft a quarterback. So if
he drafted Shedeur, is he starting?
Well, see, that's the thing is I just think it's so. I wouldn't, if I was the Giants, I'd be the king of, I hope he slides, I hope he slides, I hope he slides. And then I hope I can get him in like the 20s in a trade back in, right? Because then it's like, no, dude, you're going to sit
feel
for
good
a
about
whole
sitting
year.
him.
And you're going to sit for a whole year, and you're only giving up less. You still can make picks in this draft to improve a roster that needs improvement.
Yeah,
the Patriots are on the clock, and I know that they have a young quarterback who they want to protect that young quarterback. And I know that PFF says the needs are RB, wide receiver, O-line. I also think the Patriots have a need at defensive line. And I think the Patriots have a head coach now in Mike Vrabel who understands that you can set the tone with a defensive lineman. And I think this is the next surefire best player in the draft. And so I think they go Mason Graham.
Wow.
The defensive lineman from Michigan. My problem with Will Campbell here, because that's who I was battling back and forth between, right, is that I think that the Will Campbell, while his ceiling is so high, I mean, his floor is so high, his ceiling is just a struggle. I truly don't know if he'll end up being a great tackle. And with the 4th overall pick, to say we can get a surefire, maybe, Chris Jones type of player and an absolute game wrecker on the defensive side of the football. And remember, this Patriots defense needs a lot of help. And Vrabel is a defensive guy who's got to make a stand saying, hey, we got to go against Josh Allen. We got to get after Tua in this division. I think they look at that and they go, he's a surefire. He's an absolute blue chip. While if you move Will Campbell to guard, yeah, he might be Quentin Nelson, but are you taking the guard at 4? I think Campbell falling a little bit farther back and taking him as a hopeful tackle, and then if he doesn't work a tackle, you move him inside. It's like, hey, we got him at 7, 8, 9. It's not as bad to say we got a guard at that point as versus saying we passed up on a Graham to get a guard.
Yeah. No, I mean that's fair. I think you can make that argument. I think he's very much a Mike Vrabel guy, so that makes a lot of sense. I probably would go offensive line there just because those are harder to find in general, and this is such a deep defensive line class that you can get a potential first-round guy in the 2nd round at that position. But also agree, Mason Graham is a different cat when it comes to that D tackle.
And he feels like a Vrabel guy. He's coached by Harbaugh. This is a kid who is just built to be a stud in the NFL. And I think that Vrabel sees that and says, hey, my first pick with my new regime as the New England Patriots trying to rebuild this dynasty, that's a guy I can hang my hat on. He's my Vince Wilfork for the next 10 years. A modern version. Obviously, that type of player doesn't exist in the NFL anymore, Vince Wilfork. But you know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. Well, I've reached now my first, snafu
adjustment
in the draft because Mason Graham.
You thought
Mason Graham was the dude for Jacksonville there at number 5. So I'm going to pivot and go to the offensive line. You can't ever have too many good offensive linemen, and with the athleticism, the versatility of a Will Campbell. Look, I mean, the biggest impediment to the Jaguars has been their lines over the last several years. And, Trevor Lawrence, this obviously, we've said it year after year, this has to work. And so getting a guy like Will Campbell to wherever, you're going to put him at guard, do whatever you're going to do, he's going to start for you day one.
Yep.
Getting a guy like that to protect and to kind of beef up the run game and get things going again here in Jacksonville. Liam Cohen, get an offensive guy in there with your first pick. I like it. I think it fits. I think it works. And so I'm happy to take Will Campbell there. I did have him hopefully falling to one of my other picks that I'll talk about later as we get a little bit further down. But Jacksonville will be happy with the best offensive lineman in this class.
Okay. At 6, the Raiders are on the clock. I think the draft has gone exactly the way our mock is pick for pick, with a mock that I certainly used as inspiration. And I'm going to trust this mock. I'm not going to reveal it till maybe later, and then maybe you can see who and I'm going to say, I'm going to trust this mock because it's good for me and my mental health, and I think it's good for the team. I think I think the speculation's been a lot of trying to drum up speculation to trade up. I think when push comes to shove, the Raiders are sitting there and Pete Carroll is sitting there and they go, we need to take someone who can help us right now and help us in this division against all of those great D lines. And I think they go offensive line and they take the Mizzou tackle Armand
Membou. Wow.
That's who the Raiders go.
Here we go.
Membou. I'm not the only person who feels this way. So one of the things I've done over the last week is I've looked a lot, obviously, into Ashton Jeanty and the talk around Jeanty. And so let me just defend this, because obviously people are going to be like, you're just doing this because you want him to fall. I truly think there's a lot of where there's smoke, there's fire. And this whole you're seeing it on every newscast, whether it's Sports Center, whether it's NFL Network, whether it's FanDuel Network, whatever it is. They're all talking about, whoa, here's what it would take to get in front of the Raiders to get Ashton Jeanty at 5. When you hear enough talk like that, that's the Raiders saying, no, we're going to take Jenny. We love Jenny. We love Jenny. Again, trying to, I think, cause some chaos because they want either someone to overspend and make a dumb move, and then they want the right guy that they really want. Maybe it's a Will Campbell. Maybe it's Membou to fall to them at 6. This is, I know it's, again, it doesn't say needs offensive line there. I've seen plenty of other experts who said that the Raiders could absolutely use an upgraded tackle.
Look, and here's the thing, too. Offensive line will forever be a position of need for every team in the NFL. There's just not enough.
Starting tackle.
Not enough. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's not enough starter quality. You know, we see every year. We saw it this year. You know, the Steelers left tackle Dan Moore is a very average tackle, and he got money, man. He got the bank. It's just these are prime positions. If you can play at the NFL level as a tackle or an interior offensive lineman, either one, you're going to have a long career.
And Banks Jr. versus Membou, it's a little bit of a talk, right? After Will Campbell, who's the second time? I think Membou, when you look at his film, he's got a little bit more of that freakish nature to him. And I think that's what a team like the Raiders historically also does and takes. And I think Pete Carroll knows I'm not just going to put everything on Ashton Jeanty. I have a short window here to try to build a program with Tom Brady as well as a smart guy in that building. They know offensive line is a really smart pick here.
Well, that puts the pressure on the New York Jets at number 7, because if we see 2 offensive tackles go back to back, the Jets need offensive line. Do they panic and go for the Banks Jr., which I'm not even saying that would be reaching. You know, Banks is a really, talented player, but I actually had them pivoting, and I haven't seen many mock this player to the Jets, but I see it being a fit. And I also think to help Justin Fields out and to continue to surround your young quarterback in this new regime with talent and with a first-time head coach that's coming from Detroit that had a premier tight end. We're going Tyler Warren, tight end, Penn State, to go to the New York Jets, give Mr. Justin Fields another great weapon there. A guy that also deserves to be a top 10 player in this NFL draft. No question about it. And they have a need at tight end. It's not like it's not like they're just taking a player because he's talented. They need help at the tight end position. So you get Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, now Tyler Warren into the mix there for Justin Fields. This becomes a pretty dangerous offense very quickly in terms of the explosiveness, for sure. So I think that would be really intriguing. And Sam Laporta, can they do that with Tyler Warren over there in New York? I think that'd be a really good pick, and they'd be happy with it. If Armand Membou was there or Will Campbell, then you really start to have that discussion for sure that the Jets have to do it. But I feel good with that pick there for them, and that'd be exciting for Mr. Green.
Listen, my gut says, it's a defensive new head coach. You're going to choose defense, but you're right. I think the Jets see their offense as right now a piece or two away. You have a great young running back. You have a wide receiver number one. You have an offensive line that's not terrible. It could use help. And you're right. If one of those
they've spent money
is there
for sure.
And if Banks Jr. is the pick here, no one would hate on them for doing that either, because they absolutely need help at the tackle position. Yeah. But I like the pick. I think that's
Aaron Glenn will be a happy man with that pick.
I think that's bold, and I think he can make an impact day one. The Panthers are on the clock, and listen, the Carolina Panthers need talent everywhere. Wide receiver and edge are two that are glaring. There is no
Tyler Warren would have been a good pick for Carolina too.
He would have, and I think you could absolutely see that if he was still available. I'm going to go Jalen Walker, the edge from Georgia.
All right,
he's a guy to me that, again, lower on the list here as you're scrolling down. I've seen him. There he was. I've seen him talked about as high as 7. I've seen him as low as about, like the Steelers in like the early 20s. But again, I think when you talk about a Georgia athlete being in that region of the country too, and with that team, you look at what they need to do in that division. It is not a division that is out of reach for anyone. And it's a division where you have a lot of young quarterbacks, or you have a lot of quarterbacks that aren't exactly, Lamar Jackson. And a guy like Jalen Walker could be a game wrecker. He's more upside than he is high floor. But I think the Panthers, because they have needs, they got to make picks like that.
You got to take some risks.
And take some risk. And listen, he was great at Georgia. Really great. Now, both Georgia ends probably go in the first round. I think Jalen Walker's just more of a fit for Carolina. That's why I like him there.
Very nice. All right. That brings us to number 9 with the New Orleans Saints. What do they do here? They need a quarterback. They need a corner. They need offensive line help. They need wide receiver help. They need a lot of things, right? I think the news about the Derek Carr injury and the potential of Derek Carr not really being a viable option this upcoming season has thrown things in a bit of a tiffy here. Or tizzy. Tiffy, Laffy Taffy. Shedeur Sanders, man. I'm making the pick. I'm doing it. I think, and honestly, I think it's a good fit. Kellen Moore gets a quarterback to mold with, and Kellen Moore is all about the accurate, dial it up, like make the plays happen versus just go out and improvise. And that's really the type of play caller he is. And so I think it's a marriage that works and will be a good mentor for him. And they have weapons that it's not like you're throwing him completely to the wolves there instantly, but he's going to also have a runway and a quarterback room to have a Derek Carr mentor him and have some other pieces there to utilize. So I think it's a decent spot for Shedeur Sanders to land in a division that's not going to be breathing down your neck, at least for the foreseeable future. So I like the spot for Shedeur, and I also like the fit for the Saints.
So I love this pick. So I had, when I teased Shedeur in my head, I was like, if he gets below 9, then I think I could see one of my teams taking him. Whether that's the Colts at 14, whether that was where else to have him? Rams at 26.
Would Dallas be tempted to take a quarterback at 12?
Listen, I think Jerry. I think I could see that. I think it'd be really fun.
I mean, with Deion too, like that would almost write itself.
So the funny thing to me is I've seen Saints people, mainly the person I shared the morning show with, my weather guy, Nick Patrick, who's a diehard Saints fan. He's so anti taking a quarterback at 9. And I think I get what his position is. He looks at it and goes, we're not good. Kellen Moore's got a leash. Why not be the team this year who throws Spencer Rattler to the wolves and then wins 3 games and is picking Arch Manning next year. I get that. I get that. But I also can see if the ownership is kind of saying, we really like so-and-so. And if, Kellen Moore is finally got his chance to be a head coach, you don't know what's available next year. And if you're looking right now at, oh my God, I could have Shedeur Sanders, a guy who, no joke, is historically one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college football history, who won 9 games with a team that is not capable of winning 9 games. Now, Travis Hunter had a lot to do with that too. But Shedeur was the quarterback, and Shedeur put up really gaudy numbers, right? Shedeur should not have had his number retired at Colorado. That's nepotism.
That was silly.
But Shedeur absolutely should have been in the talks for the Heisman like he was. That's not nepotism. That he had a hell of a season.
No, I mean, especially you complete 70% of your passes at any stage in this game. You're doing something right, And he was under duress for a lot of the season.
Yes.
So.
And again, I think Shedeur Sanders' best comp is basically Dak Prescott. And you say to yourself, well, Mark, you hate Dak Prescott more than anyone. I hate Dak Prescott getting the contract he's got. Dak Prescott as your starting quarterback could absolutely be what Brock Purdy is with the Niners, where it's like, no, you're in an NFC title game. Now, I think Dak, we've seen already, he lacks like the clutch gene and he struggles at big moments. So, but the potential of Dak Prescott, which I think Shedeur is the same thing we see from Brock Purdy. It's like, well, no, if he's with the right roster and the right offensive mind, absolutely, that's a guy who could be playing in a championship game. But if 100%. Shedeur Sanders ends up with, I know he's not the coach anymore, but if he ends up with Matt Eberflus as the 4th pick, he's screwed. Like he's screwed. Like a lot of quarterbacks would be screwed. Like Caleb Williams looked screwed last year. So I'm glad you have Shedeur there. I think Shedeur with Kellen Moore is going to be really fun. I think it's going to be really fun.
It's a good fit.
All right. So we'll keep it moving here. The Bears.
Ashton Jeanty has fallen to your Chicago Bears.
So I'm going to take Ashton Jeanty, and so I will say
love
this.
It. Yes.
So I'll say this: the draft working out like this is not crazy. Sylvie from Waddle and Sylvie, ESPN 1000, the best sports talk show in Chicago. If you're in the Chicagoland area, follow them. If you're a diehard Chicago sports fan like me, ESPN 1000 app, listen to those guys.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Dan Bernstein, man.
I was never
great. No,
listen,
I'm never
670 is fine. Like I love 670. I've listened to them. I would work for them. Wink, wink. But I was never a fan of him. But I'll just say this: Field Yates was on with them today, and Field Yates told them he thinks there's about a 50% chance that Jeanty is there at 10. So what we've done here is not, oh my God, and we've created the 1.7 chance that the Bulls win the draft lottery and get Cooper Flagg. This is the way the draft shakes out right now is absolutely, positively possible. Coin flip type possible. Because I don't see the Saints. I don't see the
the Raiders. The Raiders were in play for sure. That's a team I could see doing it.
I think the Panthers a little bit in play too.
Jordan Brooks, and they just signed Chuba Hubbard to I
understand they're just also they just need blue chip guys, right? So
I personally could see Jacksonville. I could see Jacksonville doing it because ETN hasn't worked out really, and he's been super injury prone. And Tank Bigsby is a much different kind of player.
True,
but Five's rich.
And they need to protect Trevor Lawrence. Like he is not healthy because he can't stand up in the pocket. So there's chances, right? But if he gets to 10, I do think the smoke is true with the Bears that if he gets to 10, the Bears will take him. And I think this feels a lot like the Rome Odunze pick last year. We now know the Bears at 9 after the fact. There's the video that comes out where they literally, the GMs had to tell the GMs had to tell Ryan Poles, like his assistant GM and all, like, don't trade. Because Ryan Poles he trades. Like he wants to trade up. That he wanted to trade up for Rome Odunze. It failed him. I think if the Bears stay patient Genty will fall. And I think they're smart enough to realize if Genty doesn't fall, they have a lot of talent that can take it 10. I think if this is the way they would take the tackle from Texas, I think they'd take Banks Jr. if Genty's not here, right?
Sure.
And I think that, or they'd take Tyler Warren if Tyler Warren, the tight end, was there. But I think those 3 picks are all really, really, really all in play for the Bears to improve their roster at 10. Or trade back. The Bears, in a couple mock drafts I saw, including the NFL Network's latest one, they had the Colts and the Bears trading, the Colts going up to 10 to get Tyler Warren, and the Bears going down to 14, and they ended up with Shamar Stewart, the edge. So they need an edge. Okay. So it's like, I wouldn't hate that, especially because you'd assume the Bears got another second-round pick or a future first out of it.
Yep. Nope, that all makes sense. All right, so then we get to number 11 with the San Francisco 49ers on the clock. Need some defensive line help here. They need some offensive line. So that's where I'm going. Now, I initially had Will Campbell falling to the San Francisco 49ers.
They would love that.
And I was hoping that Campbell or Membu would be available to them there at 11, but he is not. But I'm still going to go that route because you just need offensive line in the NFL in general, but in the Kyle Shanahan system, most definitely need that. So look, you could go Josh Simmons, you can go Calvin Banks Jr., could even go Gray Zabel. Gray, I think Gray would be an awesome fit for San Fran because he has literally played every position on the offensive line. And he seems like a Shanahan guy, North Dakota State. But I just think pedigree-wise and the overall level of talent is probably going to lean Calvin Banks Jr. here. I just don't feel that you can go.
He played against SEC defensive ends all year, and he held his own, and he's a beast. And so you got to remember, if you're taking people who played in the SEC or the Big Ten, you can't hate on your GM for doing that because historically those are the dudes that play against the other dudes that are playing against dudes on Sunday. So
exactly. And he's a dog, and they're just getting old everywhere, right? In San Fran, what starts the rebuild legitimately? It's the lines. And so offensive line getting one of your bookends here for the next decade, it's a smart move. And to get him at 11, I think it's helpful that the D-line group was so strong because normally I don't think 3 really quality tackles even get to you at this point. But but there's some good, the fact that a running back went before you and stuff like that has helped the cause for sure.
Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys, they do what they do best. They be flashy, they be star focused, and they take the first wide receiver off the board. McMillan.
Very nice. Okay.
Tatum McMillan out of Arizona. Listen, what did we say? What did I say at the top of this? From the experts I've heard talk, they say this wide receiver draft is a bunch of high-end 2s. And if you have already a bona fide number 1 in CeeDee, this kid is the kind of opposite of CeeDee. He's a little more fluid. He played volleyball. Like he's CeeDee's explosive, fast, jump out the gym. Tatum McMillan is just a little different. And I think he'll fit perfectly as a wide receiver number 2. And Jerry will justify Dak is healthy. We got our offensive coach. We're going offense. Put a star on that boy's helmet, and I think they're happy campers.
Yeah, and I mean, there is it is a need. It is a need for the team. So it's not the most far-fetched thing. I'm sure they would have loved Ashton Genty to fall to them.
Well, yeah,
because that probably would have been the surefire pick there. But
I'd be shocked if Genty fell past the Bears. Wouldn't you?
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. I just think he's that talented and that flashy of a player, like the ability to get an 80-yard touchdown in the NFL is extremely precious, and it's becoming more of a need. So
Yeah.
If you can get that out of a running back, you gotta go for it. Miami Dolphins on the clock. They definitely need offensive line help, but I think they really need defensive help across the board. And now with
Jalen Ramsey out of
Jalen Ramsey basically being an inevitable trade at some point soon, I think corner skyrockets to a massive need.
And
for
they're
this
all
team.
available except for Travis Hunter.
And I'm going Jahdae Barron.
I like it.
Who
I love the pick.
actually PFF does have him as the highest rated corner. I know there's a lot of speculation about who the top corner is. If Will Johnson makes it there. They're really different players, but I think Jahdae Barron, because of his utility, they can use him in whatever variety they need. And I think that's going to be extremely endearing to a defense that really just needs playmakers in general. So to be able to slot him in wherever there's an immediate need is going to be the most important for them, and just a really all around great player. So yeah, Jahdae Barron off the board there to Miami.
Yeah, I love it because in my mock, I had him as the first true corner going off as well. And I had him right here at this spot to the Dolphins at 13 with you.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
So we're on the same page there. I think, again,
so far I haven't had to change any of my. Well, okay, I've had to change the Will Campbell pick to Jacksonville, and I had to change and pivot to Calvin Banks Jr. But everything's been right in line.
I got to make a change here because I had the Colts 14 ticket Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. I don't think he gets passed here. Now, my gut would say, oh, just go to the next best tight end. And I really do think that Loveland out of Michigan is a special player. And I think he's going to be a first-round pick. I think, though, the Colts realize we have a problem along the offensive line, and we have a problem on the interior of this offensive line. And I think they end up and they look at this and go, you know what? You've done the work for me, the draft, the way it shakes out. I think they're very, very happy taking the Gray Zabel out of North Dakota here at 14.
All right.
I think
I really like him a lot.
I think they look at him and they go, he can move him to guard. He's a tackle, and no one's going to really question it because at 14, this is already past where you took Quentin Nelson as a guard. And if he's a tackle, he's a tackle, but he's an absolute kind of mauler. Yep. And he fits with that kind of Indiana, Corn, North Dakota State, Midwest ethos. He's going to be happy in Indianapolis. He'll be one of those guys that he'll play like Quentin Nelson 10 years in Indianapolis, and they'll be excited about that. I think this is an Indianapolis football team that while they need blue chip players, they need 3 or 4 blue chip players. I don't know if Greg Zabel is that, but he helps solidify the chaos that's kind of surrounding this team. They don't know.
He's a blue collar player.
Yeah. And it'll just bring some stability and go, okay, we got one. Now, maybe in the second, third round, we can reach for guys and reach for talent and reach for maybe physical traits because we just need to add some of that to the team. But let's steady the ship here with Gray Zabel.
I like it a lot. Now, the Falcons here, they have wide receiver as the top need. I don't really see it that way necessarily. They've obviously had quite a bit of capital put into that position in Drake London and Kyle Pitts at tight end. Could they use another wide receiver? Certainly. At this point for Atlanta, where you're at as an organization, needing this sort of reset with Michael Penix coming in as his first full year as the starter, I think you got to focus on the true areas that really your team that will set the foundation for the team, whether if it's offensive or defensive line. Like those are the choices here. I think the fact that offensive line has really been pounded away so far in the draft, the way that this has gone for us, I think they pivot and go defensive line. And because of the need and the premier nature of the edge position, I think they go that route, even if I think there's a better prospect at the interior D line. I think because of how important edge is in the NFL, they go Mike Green, the edge out of Marshall, and get themselves a surefire pass rusher. A dude who obviously doesn't have the pedigree, being from going to Marshall. He's not an SEC type of talent. But Mike Green's a guy that, by all accounts that I've seen, have him as a guy with massive, massive upside.
Yeah.
To be a rangy, quick twitch type of a pass rusher there. And so with how important that position is, I think they're going to go that route, but I could easily see it going interior D-line, Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan, a couple other really good picks there. But yeah, I'm just going to go edge and kind of see what happens.
Yeah, I would have. I'm surprised. There's a kid who played in red and black just down the road who is still an edge. I think is very, very talented, who maybe who would feel at home in Atlanta. But listen, Mike Green is a very, very talented player. I agree. I think Mike Green's one of those guys that I don't think he gets by 20. It's just there's a lot to like about the way that kid plays football. Okay, Cardinals are on the clock, and I think they go defense and they stick with cornerback, and they say to themselves, we got the best corner in the draft from Michigan, Will Johnson. I think they can sell that as, hey, at pick 16, we got the best corner in the draft. It's a position of need. Listen, the Cardinals also, I think, need O-line help. They need a wide receiver. They need edge. They need a lot. But I think this is a pick where in that division, trying to slow down some of those offenses and the talent there, a guy like Will Johnson's going to be very, very needed day one to come in and make plays for the Cardinals.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And it's they have a lot of needs. Another team that really could use a lot of help across the board. But yeah, I mean, if there's a top cornerback sitting there waiting for you at the middle of the first round, you go ahead and grab it, especially if you think that's the number one cornerback.
Yeah.
In a class that, just doesn't have too many of those. So yeah, strike there, get the depth at your other needs later in the draft. That makes a lot of sense. We get to the Cincinnati Bengals, and we all know what they need. They need offensive line, and they need defensive line really, really bad. And with Trey Hendrickson potentially not getting this long-term extension that, desperately needs and deserves, that becomes even more of a glaring issue for the Cincinnati Bengals. And look, they're in a blue-collar division where defensive line matters so much, and you're seeing teams like the Ravens rebuilding their offensive line, the Steelers investing heavily in that position, and the Browns having a lot of money tied up in their offensive line too. I think you got to go with the best available defensive lineman and interior defensive tackle to fight back a little bit. If one of those top offensive linemen, if a Gray was available here, Gray Zabel, then yeah, maybe you go that route. But I'm going defensive line. PFF has Walter Nolan here. I think the better defensive line prospect here is Derek Harmon. And so I'm going with Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon, who tested super well. And wow, they must have him super low on here because he is not showing up in the.
That's interesting because Harmon, I'm with you.
Yeah, they've got him at like 5 down here.
I had the 42. Steelers taking Harmon. It just in my mock that I did. So I'm with you. I see him in this spot.
I think he's a top 3 defensive lineman in this draft. So yeah, that's interesting.
And I'm with you too. I think that Walter Nolan is one of those guys that is going to slip a little here. There's some bad tape on Walter Nolan, and there's some character issues with Walter Nolan. It's a little bit like when he's on, he's on. When he's not, he is a liability. And a team like Cincinnati can't afford that. They can't afford that.
And Harmon's really good against the run too. Like he's much more of a safe all around pick at that position than some guys that maybe flash like a lot of great skills as pass rushers only or specialists.
Yeah, I like the pick. PFF, I think, did you dirty there with some of the.
Yeah, 42 overall. They had him not as a first round pick, which is fascinating.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to keep it moving here. And the Seattle Seahawks, they go and get who they think is the number one wide receiver in the draft from Mizzou. They are taking
Burden?
Mr. Burden the third, Luther Burden the third, and I like this for Seattle. Listen, they have a number one guy.
How about Mizzou, by the way, getting 2 top 20 picks? Good on that.
And
sorry,
I think
I broke a train of thought. That was
no, you're fine. I love it. And shout out to them. They had a heck of a year. And they're recruiting really well. Drinkowitz is a very fun up and coming head coach. I like Luther Burden the third. I like him a lot more when he is the Robin to Jackson Smith and Jigba. And you have Sam Darnold now. And again, you paid him and you're betting on him over Geno Smith. You've got to make that work. One of the ways you make that work is by giving him a guy like Luther Burden III who can come in and say, I don't have to be the number one. And that's a huge relief for a first-round pick wide receiver.
Absolutely. No, I think that matches really well. And when you're Seattle at 18, like you have the benefit here of kind of finessing your roster however you see fit. And if Luther Burden is number one on your list of wide receivers, if you're Seattle, then go ahead and take him. You're going to need to give help to Sam, and that's going to help out Smith and Jigba a lot too. Then we get to 19 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need just anything on defense, essentially. They're a very old team. Anything on defense. This is where I had Mykel Williams slipping the Georgia edge. And a great edge prospect, the number 2 edge in my view in this entire class, and a big need there for Tampa. So I think they go edge here, another premier position, another guy that is definitely first round talent, and just seems kind of like a guy that would fit well in Tampa to me. So I'm going Mykel Williams, the Georgia edge, falling all the way to 19 there to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. He'll fit right in with Tampa's scheme. I also think that when you think about Tampa offensively, they kind of brought everyone back. We were worried about all the wide receivers. They're old, but they're all back. And so defensively, they're not all back. They're all old, but they're gone. And so when you look at what that coaching staff has to do, a defensive coaching staff, and rebuilding it, he's a guy you can lean on. And again, I think he's a guy who's probably maybe a top 12 talent in a lot of drafts. Falling to 19 is good. The Broncos shock everyone, and they take the second running back off the board. Omarion Hampton out of UNC.
So good.
He's very good. He'd be the number one back in a lot of drafts. If I was the Bears, I'd be very excited to see him taken to the top of round 2. If it happens that way, to where if they don't get Ashton Jeanty, I think if I'm the Bears and you miss on Jeanty, you miss on Hampton, I like the kid out of Ohio State. Maybe late in the second, early in the third round, and you make that pick there. So it's kind of my thoughts on it. Listen, for the Broncos, you might argue it's reaching, but I would argue this feels a lot like Detroit when they took Gibbs. Detroit kind of shocked the world, and we're like, we're better than what you thought we would be at this point of the rebuild. Denver's a lot better than what we thought they'd be at this point of the rebuild. And having a star running back is a absolute need. And they have a lot for Bo Nix, except for that bell cow back. Hampton could be that guy.
Absolutely. No, he's one of those bigger dudes that can probably fare well in the AFC West and in the harsh conditions of Mile High Stadium, while also giving you enough mobility to break off those huge runs.
And if I'm him, how pumped am I to be going to Sean Payton? Like a guy
who's going to understands.
Who's going to make you put up numbers.
Can he be the next, Mark Ingram, Reggie Bush kind of hybrid? Because he's kind of a little bit of both of them in many ways.
Yeah, he's not what's his name, who's still with the Saints, who's very good, who's like a
Kamara. Yeah,
he's not Alvin Kamara. Yeah, I don't know why I was blanking on him, but yeah, I'm with you.
He's stockier for sure.
Your Steelers
so we get to Pittsburgh. Yeah, at 21 here, and PFF doesn't even list defensive line as a need, which is wild to me because to me it's a massive need. Cam Hayward is playing great. He is very much towards the end of his career and may not, we don't know how many years he's got left, truth be told. Maybe he's got 2 more seasons left in him. They really almost have no depth behind him at defensive line. They have one other defensive lineman, Keanu Benton, that they, spent a high draft pick on a couple years back. Other than that, they are thin. And this is a position that they, they got run on pretty hard by Derrick Henry. If you don't think this team recalls, the 190 yards that they gave up in a playoff game to him, you got to think twice. Yes, quarterback's a need. There's not one available here. Could they take a running back? If Omarion Hampton is here, I could see them making that move. But then you got to think the ghosts of Christmas past of Najee Harris staring at them, being like, your last first round draft running back was fine and good, but did it move the needle for you? That's going to be tough for them to justify. So then you get into, okay, are they just going to go and get another offensive lineman? No, I think Walter Nolan is sitting here. You're going to go with the best defensive lineman here. Get a guy that can start day one for you and also not have all of the pressure. He can rotate in as needed and be one of those guys that's the next, hopefully, Cam Hayward for you a year from now or potentially 2 years down the road. But to me, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been signaling defensive line for quite some time. And I just think it makes all the sense in the world that they go that route here early in a draft that's, got some really high-end talent at the position.
Yeah, and he'll and the culture will embrace him and be like, listen, this is how you be a pro. And I think that's a good
And Mike Tomlin, great fit for, a guy they've taken some head cases in the past at some people. Yeah. And I don't even know too much about his,
I don't know if he's a head case.
That stuff,
there's some bad tape where it's like, are you trying?
Right.
And so that's you got to answer those questions. And the Chargers are the happiest since the Chicago Bears, where they are like, we waited patiently, and the guy who we've been circling just fell in our lap, and Harbaugh gets his guy, tight end Colston Loveland from Michigan.
How about it?
Justin Herbert gets his guy, and a guy who a lot of people are saying is actually the number one tight end in this draft, mainly because Warren had a really great one season this past year. But if you look at Loveland in the past 2 years when Michigan actually threw the ball before Harbaugh left, this kid was putting up incredible numbers. He's actually bigger than Tyler Warren. He is more prototypical of what you look at as like, that's like the next Gronk type of.
Like George Kittle-esque. Yeah.
Yes. And Absolutely. So I think he's going to be loved in that Charger uniform, and Jim Harbaugh is going to be doing jumping jacks and somersaults and flips in the draft room when he gets to call Colston Loveland to say, come to Southern California.
And he can bulk up. He'll bulk up more and become like, because he has the blocking tools. He's not like a,
but he's with this guy with Jim. And he'll use him well.
It's the perfect guy to like help coach him up in that aspect of his game. And he's going to be a great dual threat type.
Don't be shocked if Colston Loveland does not last to 22.
Oh yeah. No, I could see it. Cause there's really, even it was the LSU tight end. He's really good too. This is actually a really good tight end class. It's just that it's one of those positions that not many people invest heavily in.
Yeah.
So to see 2 tight ends go here, that's good to see. So then it gets down to Green Bay, who has a couple different needs, of course. I had Will Johnson as a possible pick here, but I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver, Ohio State, because despite maybe this not being a great wide receiver class, he's a guy that absolutely has the potential to be a number one wideout in the NFL. And this is a team that just has a lot of number twos.
Add another number 2 to the list. I love
it. hey, with potential, you'll take it. And honestly, he's a guy that I think would complement their wide receiver core currently. I could see them going this route. I could see them going the edge or D-line route here. but with so much of that top end talent being off the board, maybe I could see them going and dipping into the wide receiver pool here, hoping to address defensive line at the turn. Corner could absolutely be in play. Will Johnson's not available there. So I just, decided to make the move and get them a wide receiver here, a guy who, yes, could be a number 2, but who also would be considered one of the top guys in this class.
Yeah, it's funny. I
know that there's going to be a few wide receivers taken.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking that. But I get your thought process. As a Bears fan, I kind of love it because I think it'll create some drama within Packers Twitter to be like, whoa, do we need a wide receiver? Blah blah. So I kind of love the drama it could create. For the Vikings, another NFC Norris team, as a boomer would say, they take the best guy at his position. He's still on the board. He's the first one of these taken off the board. I know you're going to
take here.
Safety, Malachi Starks. That's an easy pick. Again, the Vikings are hoping everyone else just stays away and the draft unfolds this way, and they can go, hey, we really need a safety. There's a great safety from Georgia. Let's just take him.
Well, PFF does agree with you. I think Emenware from South Carolina is probably better. He's a little bit lanky and ranger, but he hits talented. So hard. But Malachi Starks is really good too. So I don't have like an issue with that. Let's see. They got Emenware at pick 67. PFF, what are you doing, dude? There's no chance he is that.
Yeah,
low.
I don't.
But Malachi Starks. No, yeah, I think a safety is a good pick. That's a big need for the Vikings. They really need like a corner or a safety. It should have been top of their list for sure.
This team, the Houston Texans draft room just shit their pants because the Packers at 23 took their guy at 25.
Well, look, I was debating wide receiver for sure for Houston, but I think, hey man, they just traded away a tackle. They could dip back in here to a guy who is a first round talent tackle. And I think they're happy that Josh Simmons, the tackle at Ohio State, is still available to them here. Right. I think they go right back to the offensive line. They address that. Laramie Tunsil is gone. Let's go get Josh Simmons. Let's kind of, help reinforce that aspect of the team. We had a down year last year. CJ Stroud took some hits. I think this is a no-brainer pick, honestly, for them here, especially with Egbuka off the board. I don't think you could justify going wide receiver here when you have so many of those needs. Like, yes, you've weathered injuries, but like, what's the likelihood that Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and this group of receivers is going to get hurt again? I think you got to take your chances and get a guy who's a first round talent at the tackle position.
Damn, the Rams! You just left me. I'm now.
Was that going to be your pick?
No, I wasn't looking far enough ahead.
Okay.
The Rams are interesting. Like to me, they're a team that I think they would love one of the tight ends to fall, and maybe they move up and go get a tight end. I think they'd love one of those premier tackles to fall. Maybe they go up and get a tackle. I think they'd love one of the wide receivers like a Luther Burden to fall, an Egbuka to fall, because they do need a wide receiver. Like, I mean, you're moving on from Cooper Kupp. You obviously have your number one in Nacua. I think the Rams go with a guy who's to me, he's a prospect that I just think is not going to flame out. He's not going, his floor is so high. I think his ceiling's limited a little bit just because of the transition to the NFL and the way he was used versus the way I think he'll be used. But the Rams have done this in the past where they've taken guys at a defensive pick and you go, and they make it work. We saw it last year with, what's his name? The Edge, who had an incredible year, Jared Verse. I think they go with the best linebacker, and the only linebacker that's probably going to be taken in the first round, Campbell out of Alabama. Jihad Campbell. I think he is a really versatile guy that's going to fit with this young Rams defense. Really fast, can go sideline to sideline. Can he rush the passer? Yes. Can he play in space? Yes. He's not elite at any of those, but I think he could maybe be the signal caller of the future for this young Rams defense. And again, in a division where they have a lot of offensive firepower, they need a defense to just keep growing and investing young picks in their defense. And I think Campbell is that for them. If he's still there at 26, I think they'd be really happy to get the best linebacker in the draft at 26.
Yeah, that's a good pick, and probably a pick that the Baltimore Ravens sitting here at 27 would have to think about after losing Patrick Queen, and they did get Roquan Smith, but they're very much a 2 linebacker system that they employ there. But the Baltimore Ravens, outside of
did you make the Rams
line
pick?
help,
I'm looking at it. It still says Rams on the
Oh,
top.
I'm sorry, my bad. No,
did you
I did
make
not.
Campbell in the pick? There he is.
There we go.
Ranked 13th.
At 27 here, the Baltimore Ravens are on the clock, and they could use some help on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I was playing around, especially since Emanwari has fallen, that this could be a good spot, a physical, rangy safety. But after taking Kyle Hamilton so recently in the first round, I think they're going to pivot here and address their edge and get Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher, the other very rangy guy from Texas A&M. And
the Lions are shooketh.
Huge need.
The Lions are shooketh. There goes my pick. Man. I like Shamar. Shamar to me is one of the guys that I would actually list as a D end. Like he can play the run,
play with
and
his hand down
edge.
For sure.
He's not just an edge guy. He's not just a pass rush guy. I think he's an all around really unique defensive end prospect that in that purple and black is going to become a nightmare. You just know that the Ravens will use him.
It's a really good fit there.
It's a great fit. And I think the Lions could have really used him as kind of a set the tone on the other side of Hutchinson. Hutchinson's the rush, the passer guy. Yeah. I think the Lions, right? I think the Lions can't not take D end. Who do I like? I'll go Pierce from Tennessee. I think they see that
and Washington is quivering now.
Yeah, I think
that's who I had.
And they go, this guy's a first round grade. He wreaked havoc in the SEC. And again, they don't need him to be the number one guy. They have the number one guy. They need a guy who can instill enough fear that you can't just only focus on the number one guy. And I think Pierce Jr. can absolutely develop into that with the Lions. And the Lions are, we don't know who what their new defense coordinator, new offensive coordinator are going to bring to the table. There's a lot of question marks for them, but I think Pierce Jr. is a fun fit.
That is a fun fit for sure. And then we get to Washington. Oh boy. All right. Very, very interesting stuff here. Washington can use a lot of different
they need help.
Players. They really need help across the board. Now for them, so I had James Pierce going to Washington. The running back position is interesting, like a Travion Henderson. But are there 3 running backs really going to go in the first round? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I actually think they could go the wide receiver route here and make their offense even more explosive than it already is and just keep kind of piling on the pressure. That's what I'm flirting with here, other than just going straight D-line, which of course would make a guy like a Dan Quinn a happy camper.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. I think I'll go that route though. I think I will, just because it just seems like a much more surefire thing. So we're going to go with Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, a smart pick, not one I wanted to make because I had him going to Kansas City 2 picks later.
I had him going to the Bills. the next pick.
Well, then there you go. It was going to be gone either way.
I actually
you kind of got to do that.
In my real mock, I had him going to the Ravens at 27. So I had him in this world.
Yeah.
That really kills the Bills. The Bills, you know what? I think the Bills are okay here. I think here at the end of the first round, they'd actually probably be looking to trade out at this point.
Sure.
I think they'd look at this and go, hey, who wants in? Who wants in? Who wants in? And I think they'd actually get plenty of calls. But I think if they stay, screw it. Let's go with Tyler Booker from Alabama, the offensive lineman.
Interior. There you go. I like it. That's a good
I
pick.
like Booker. He's a earth grader. He's a big boy. And I think the Bills, again, they realize how important that offensive line is for them. I like Josh Cornely Jr. a lot.
Yep.
But I think the Bills look at an Alabama prospect like Booker Jr., like Booker, and they say, all right, we can play this game.
I think now is a very interesting situation for the Kansas City Chiefs here because Connerly Jr. would be a really nice pick.
Yeah.
I could see them being tempted to double dip and go back with get the wide receiver out of Texas. But
I like that idea too.
Matthew Golden.
They are getting Rice back this year, at least health-wise. We don't know still yet what his legal troubles will be. Because he's still facing 2 different legal things.
I also think it could be a very interesting pick for them to go with the third tight end and take Mason Taylor out of LSU. Because Kelsey is like he's got to really be in play. But here's I'm gonna go with the offensive line route because they just got absolutely manhandled by the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah,
like they need the trenches so bad there, and it's just really hard to not address that.
And the rookie tackle they drafted last year, remember, he was benched at the end of the year. And that's why Tooney was then playing tackle. And while Tooney is an all-pro guard, he is a below-average tackle. He's an average, capable starting tackle, but he's nothing special. And so I think this makes a ton of sense. And they bring him in, they say, we're just going to keep throwing guys here, and we're going to bring talent in. It's the right pick. And listen, the Eagles would love for you and I to think the opposite way, where that Malachi Starks from Georgia is actually the second safety, and he falls to them at 32, and they just add to their Georgia defense for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
But I think that doesn't happen, and I'm going with the guy you like, who PFF doesn't like, South Carolina, Nick Emmanwori. I think he's the second best safety in the draft. And again, in Philly, he doesn't have to be all pro day one. He's got the skills to grow into that with the length and the speed. But I think, with that defensive line and the way they rush the passer, they can live with him developing a little bit. So there you go.
Beautiful. No, I like that a lot. Here's a quick look at our entire first round.
We'll have to tweak that out.
I'm gonna have to definitely make sure to download. There we go. Got it. It has been downloaded, and we are set. I really like that pick, and that's Cooper DeJean last year, Nick Emmanwori this year. You get 2 very versatile DBs, and now you're cooking. You got your lines are set. You've got amazing skill position players. You have a quarterback that is your franchise quarterback. What more? They have the benefit of just literally finding projects that can be really, really good.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting pick there for them. They could also gone the Mason Taylor route. They could also go take the tight end, and Goddard's not going to be there forever. But I like that. I like that route a lot. So how do you feel overall about that first round?
What I feel is, from my research, 12 of the top 20 teams have offensive line within their top 3 needs. And so you're going to see a run of offensive linemen at some point in time. Ours happened there in the late, 10s through the early teens. With Zabel, with Kevin Banks, Membo, obviously, Campbell as well. All of them going within the top 12, top 13 picks.
Yep.
So I think that's a real thing. And I do think there will be a wide receiver run. I think the run will start in the 20s. And I think it'll be really interesting. Like a couple of years ago, remember when the Vikings draft room was celebrating that the Eagles took what's his name, and then Justin Jefferson fell to them the next pick, and it was what's his name, who can't catch, who's like already like almost out of the league. I can't think of his name.
Who went to which team?
He went to the Eagles, the pick before Justin Jefferson to the Vikings.
Was it Jalen Reagor? No, that was too long ago. Nelson no.
Aguilar, maybe. No, it was someone with a name like that. Why can't I think of that? That's bad. We got to get our brains back into football mode here. I'm watching too much playoff basketball.
It might have been Reagor. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it probably was Reagor because he's 26. I think he would have been that draft then.
And it was like, oh my God. So there's going to be that moment. We're going to look back at this draft and go, maybe the Rams get someone at 26 and the next pick, it's a guy who's trash, or vice versa, or whatever. And team's going to miss out on a stud and a dud, literally pick back to back, because this first round is going to be filled with probably 10, maybe 12 guys who on a normal or a slightly above average talent year wouldn't be drafted in the first round. They'd be great quality second round talent, but they're not back end first round guys that are going to be drafted the back end of the first round. I also don't think you're going to see a lot of trade back up into the first round because, again, it's a lot of guys that have second round grades anyways. But I do think you're going to see teams maybe make a run late in the first on a quarterback. Keep your eye for Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart to be that last quarterback taken in the third round, just so they get that fifth year of eligibility. They'll willingly give up another second rounder or something to get that fifth year of eligibility on a guy who they see that has upside, i.e. Cleveland or New York doing this after they get their star player, then they go get their quarterback late, and a guy who they say, hey, listen, we took him at the end of the first round. He's going to sit behind Russell Wilson. He's going to sit behind Joe Flacco. We're not worried about playing him at all this year. We got the fifth year of eligibility. The plan is working, right? So that obviously could happen. If it doesn't happen in the first round, it wouldn't shock me if there's early trades up in draft day in the second round. And I can't wait for Thursday when we're live to react to all of it, how it goes down.
Yeah, no, Thursday is going to be very telling because we know there's going to be trades. There always are. And so that's really going to set the tone for where this goes. But yeah, as you mentioned, and for those of you watching, we will be here live reacting to the NFL draft in real time. Starts at 8:00 Eastern. We'll probably join about like 10 to 15 minutes before the NFL draft opens.
Yeah.
This is going to be much more casual. We're going to have some guests coming in and out to discuss upcoming picks and just hang out with us. If you, the viewer, wants to chime in and weigh in as well, let us know. Send us a private message on social media at FB Lounge Pod, Facebook or Twitter, and we can get you the link sent to join the show as well, and just chat with us about the NFL draft and react to it in real time with us. So it's going to be a casual day. We'll be on there for a couple hours. We'll see how long the first round goes and how tired we get, but we'll be on for a while and just hanging out and watching the draft. So yeah, very much excited to that. Stay tuned. Just a few days away, and just a few minutes before the NFL draft gets ready. Head over to YouTube and come watch the draft with us.
I'm going to eat a whole Reese's bunny.
Oh, there we go. All right.
Reese's.
I was going to say,
my wife got me a Reese's Easter bunny as a treat. Oh, there will be beer. And I was like, you know what? We're going to be streaming for maybe 2 hours. I can eat the bunny throughout the 2 hours. Join the stream, see where I'm at on the bunny.
Man, what would be a great idea is if you get the the extra hot wings from Buffalo Wild Wings, Mark, and do it during the show. That'd be great. That'd be great.
I've almost had to run
a great
to the
idea
bathroom
for a
before
show
during the show. Yeah, I don't need to do that now.
All right, blast from the past, indeed. All right, well, looking very, very much forward to Thursday. We appreciate you all tuning in. Be sure to tune in then. Come join us, celebrate with us, mourn with us if you need to. Let us know how your team does, but we're excited for it. We'll be here Thursday, and we'll see you all then.
This has been a For Frequency Sake Podcast Network production. For more great content, subscribe to For Frequency Sake on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.